December 17th, 1944, near the village of Bewlingen, Belgium. Dawn comes late beneath a low ceiling of snow-heavy cloud, the light thin and blue, barely strong enough to cut through the smoke hanging over the Ardennes forest. Hauptmann Karl-Heinz Richter, tank commander of a Panzer IV in the 1st SS Panzer Division, stands half exposed in his cupola as his column rolls off the frozen road. The metal beneath his boots vibrates with the engine's uneven growl. Already thirsty, already burning fuel they do not have. His breath fogs the air inside his goggles. The smell is diesel, oil, cordite, pine sap crushed under tracks. To his right, American trucks sit abandoned in a clearing, dozens of them. Olive drab, canvasbacks slashed by shrapnel. Some still idling, engines ticking as they cool, as if their drivers had stepped away only moments ago. "Stop!" Richter orders, slapping the rim of the hatch. His driver brakes hard, snow spraying up against the glasses plate. Richter drops to the ground, boots crunching. He expects ammunition. Rations, maybe. Instead, a young SS grenadier pries open the back of a truck and laughs, sharp, disbelieving. "Kraftstoff, Herr Hauptmann. Fuel." Richter climbs into the truck bed. He freezes. Jerry cans, hundreds of them, stacked in perfect rows. Red-painted caps? Labels in English? Nearby, another truck carries fuel drums, steel barrels as tall as a man. Beyond them, more vehicles, more stacks. The depot, hastily camouflaged, now torn open by chance and momentum. Richter walks slowly, one hand brushing the cold metal of a barrel. His mind calculates automatically. Liters, kilometers, hours of engine time. He knows exactly how far his Panzer can go on a full load. He also knows how little is left in their own supply trucks, those that haven't broken down or been bombed into ditches over the last year. Behind him, engines idle as tank commanders shout orders. Fuel hoses appear, dragged from American trucks like captured lifelines. Men work fast, desperately, pumping gasoline into German tanks, not designed for it, praying it won't foul the engines. No one stops them. There is no time for caution. This is supposed to be the moment of triumph. For 2 days, the offensive has gone better than anyone dared to hope. The Americans were surprised. Their lines cracked in places. Roads once choked with retreating German columns now belong, briefly, to the Wehrmacht again. Hitler's gamble has momentum, yet Richter does not feel victory. He steps back and looks at the clearing as a whole. It is too organized, too full. Not a front-line dump scraped together in panic, but something larger, planned, systematic. A node in a web stretching far west, far beyond the horizon. An American prisoner is brought forward, his hands raised, helmet gone, eyes darting. A corporal by his insignia. Richter asks in rough English how much fuel was here. The corporal hesitates, then shrugs. This one? Couple days' worth. More coming. From where? Richter asks. The American gestures vaguely west. Depots. Railhead, ports, doesn't matter, we'll bring more. It is not bravado. It is said plainly, like a statement of physics. Richter feels something settle in his chest, heavy and unwelcome. For years, German officers have spoken of Endsieg, final victory, through willpower, through superior tactics, through sacrifice. But standing here, ankle deep in snow beside enough fuel to move an entire battalion, Richter sees the war not as a map of arrows and objectives, but as flow. Fuel flows. Ammunition flows. Food flows. And this ocean of gasoline in the middle of a frozen Belgian forest is something Germany can no longer create. He thinks of the last briefing before the offensive. The whispered admissions. Limited fuel reserves. One chance. Capture what you need from the enemy. Capture! As if war can be sustained by theft alone. An SS officer nearby is jubilant, slapping Richter on the shoulder. With this, he says, we'll reach the Meuse. Richter nods, but his eyes drift back to the American trucks, to the neat stenciling, to the untouched barrels extending beyond the trees. If this much fuel can be lost without stopping the enemy, how much more do they have? A distant rumble rolls across the forest. Not thunder. Aircraft engines. High, far away. Invisible through the clouds, but unmistakable. American. The fuel pumps keep running. The men keep working. The offensive moves on. But in that clearing at Bewlingen, amid captured riches and frozen ground, Karl-Heinz Richter understands something he cannot say aloud. This is not the enemy running out of fuel. It is Germany. The engines drink greedily, Hoses shudder as pumps force American gasoline into German tanks, the liquid sloshing into compartments never meant for it. Richter watches the fuel gauge needle climb, then stop just shy of full. Enough. It has to be enough. By mid-morning, the column is moving again. The Ardennes road narrows into a ribbon of ice and crushed snow, bordered by pines splintered from shellfire. Burned-out Shermans mark the ditches, their hulls blackened, turrets cocked at unnatural angles. The men cheer when they pass them. Proof, evidence, momentum. Richter stays half out of the cupola, scanning constantly. His radio crackles with fragmented reports. Units ahead delayed, bridges destroyed, resistance stiffening. Always the same refrain follows each transmission. How much fuel do you have? Numbers are exchanged like confessions. 30 kilometers. 20? 15? The captured American fuel gives them speed, but not abundance. It is a loan with brutal interest. By the afternoon of December 18th, Richter's battalion reaches a crossroads near Motorscheid. Snow falls harder now, thick flakes that blur distance and swallow sound. Infantry move ahead cautiously, rifles low, breath steaming. Somewhere to the west, artillery thumps, American guns finding their range. They stop again. Another supply dump. Smaller than Boulogne, but still impressive. More trucks. More fuel, more order. Richter climbs down and walks through it, the déjà vu unsettling. The same packaging. The same methodical layout. This is not chaos. This is system. A German quartermaster officer is already taking notes, lips moving as he counts. We can refuel everyone here, he says, if nothing breaks. If nothing breaks. Richter hears those words and almost laughs. His Panzer has thrown a track twice in the last month. Replacement parts are scavenged, mismatched, worn thin. The engine knocks when it idles too long. Every kilometer is a gamble. That night, they bivouac in the trees. Engines off. No fires. Men huddle in great coats, gnawing on frozen bread and tins of meat stamped with dates from 1942. Richter sits on the hull of his tank, staring west. In the distance, the sky pulses faintly, artillery flashes reflecting off cloud cover. He imagines the American rear areas beyond that glow. Rail lines untouched. Fuel trains unloading. Ports at Antwerp and Cherbourg disgorging supplies faster than any German planner could now comprehend. A young lieutenant joins him, barely 20. Herr Hauptmann, he says quietly, they say the Americans abandoned everything in panic. Richter considers correcting him. Instead, he asks, how long do you think panic lasts? The lieutenant shrugs. Until we reach the Meuse? Richter looks at the boy's face, hopeful, exhausted, hollow-eyed. Until the first counterattack, he says. December 19th, the counterattack comes. American fighter bombers appear as the clouds, thin silver shapes diving out of the sun. P-47s. Thunderbolts. They rake the roads with machine gun fire, rockets slamming into trucks and half-tracks. Fuel trucks burn spectacularly, black smoke rising like signal fires. Richter orders his driver off the road, tank grinding into the trees as explosions tear the convoy apart behind them. The smell of burning gasoline is overwhelming, sweet, choking, final. When the aircraft leave, the road is littered with wreckage. Men stagger through smoke, faces smeared with soot and blood. A fuel truck lies on its side, contents spilling uselessly into the snow. That night, Richter checks his gauges. Less than half a tank. They had captured fuel twice now. Twice it had vanished just as quickly, consumed by movement, lost to air attack, burned by chance. He thinks again of the American corporal at Boulogne. Doesn't matter. We'll bring more. On December 20th, orders arrive. Push west regardless of losses. The Meuse is still the objective. Time is everything. Richter acknowledges the transmission, then switches off the radio and sits in silence for a long moment. The truth is clear now, unavoidable. They are advancing not on a river, but on a deadline. Every kilometer forward stretches their supply line thinner, while the enemy's grows shorter, stronger, closer to its source. By the time Richter's column grinds to a halt outside Stavelot, fuel is measured in minutes, not kilometers. Tanks idle in place to keep engines warm, each second burning what little remains. Ahead, American engineers blow another bridge. Richter closes his eyes. Even if they reach the Meuse, what then? The bridge at Stavelot collapses into the river with a roar that echoes through the valley. Timber, steel, and stone vanish beneath churning black water. For a moment, no one speaks. The only sound is the idle of engines and the distant crack of American small arms probing the edges of the German column. Richter lowers himself back into the cupola and stares at the ruined crossing. The map spread across his knees is already obsolete. Red grease pencil arrows end here, at a river they were never truly meant to reach. Orders come down the line, hold position, await engineers. Richter knows what that means. Engineers require time. Time requires fuel. And fuel is now a number so small it borders on fiction. He dismounts again, walking along the line of tanks. Men sit on fenders, smoking their last cigarettes, breaking them in half to share. A mechanic argues with an officer over whether one panzer can siphon enough fuel from another to get both moving later. The argument ends when they realize neither has enough to spare. Down the slope, near the river, American fire snaps through the trees. Nothing heavy yet, just pressure. Presence. Richter's radio crackles. A battalion commander reports fuel exhaustion. Another reports vehicles abandoned. A third simply goes silent mid-transmission. This is how it ends, Richter thinks, not with a decisive battle, but with arithmetic. That afternoon, word spreads that another American fuel dump has been discovered near La Glaise. The announcement ripples through the unit like a stimulant. Men stand. Engines turn over. For a brief moment, the offensive breathes again. They reach it at dusk. The dump is smaller than the others, partially destroyed. Some barrels burned, others holed by shrapnel. What remains is enough to top off a handful of vehicles, not a battalion. Richter watches as officers argue over allocation, voices raised, tempers frayed. In the end, priority goes to those tanks deemed most operational. Richter's Panzer makes the list, barely. As fuel pours in, he notices something new. American markings on the barrels indicate daily delivery schedules, dates, quantities. Planned replacements. This dump was not meant to last. It was meant to be consumed and refilled, over and over, as part of a machine that assumed continuity. Germany no longer plans like this, Richter realizes. Germany hoards, improvises, prays. That night, American artillery begins in earnest. Shells walk across the hillsides, methodical, precise, not harassment. Preparation. Richter's crew huddles inside the tank as fragments rain down, steel ringing with each near miss. Between impacts, Richter hears the sound of trucks, American trucks, moving somewhere beyond the ridge. Reinforcements. Supplies flowing forward even as the Germans stall. By December 21st, the temperature drops further. Oil thickens. Batteries die. Vehicles that could move yesterday refuse to start today. Richter's tank starts, but only after 3 attempts and a shouted prayer from the driver. They advance less than 5 kilometers before stopping again. Fuel warning light on. Ahead of them, American armor appears on the ridgeline. Shermans, hull down, turrets already traversing. They do not rush, they do not chase, they wait. The firefight that follows is brief and brutal. Richter fires 3 rounds, 2 high explosive, 1 armor piercing, 1 Sherman burns. Another reverses out of sight. Then the return fire lands. The world turns white and violent. Richter is thrown against the cupola ring as the tank lurches. The engine sputters, coughs, and dies. Silence. Inside the hall, the crew stares at one another. No one speaks. They all know what the silence means. No fuel, no movement. Richter orders evacuation. They scramble out the rear hatch and into the trees as American rounds punch through the abandoned Panzer. Within minutes, it is burning, its remaining fuel feeding the fire in a final, useless gesture. They move on foot now. West becomes irrelevant. South, then east, anywhere with cover. By nightfall, Richter and a handful of survivors are surrounded near Trois Ponts. American voices echo through the woods, calm, confident. Flares rise, bathing the snow in harsh white light. A loudspeaker crackles in accented German. You are surrounded. Lay down your weapons. Richter looks at his men, exhausted, hollow, unshaven. He drops his pistol into the snow. As they step out, hands raised, Richter catches sight of an American convoy rolling past on the road behind their lines. Fuel trucks, ammunition, food, endless. The war, he understands now, was decided long before this forest. Not by bravery, not by tactics, but by supply. They are marched east through the snow, hands numb, boots slipping on ice polished smooth by traffic that never stops. American traffic. Convoys move even at night now. Headlights hooded, engines humming steadily, confidently. Richter counts them without meaning to. 10 trucks, then 20, then more than he can track before the road curves away. No one shouts. No one rushes. The Americans guarding them walk easily, rifles slung, chewing gum. One carries a clipboard tucked under his arm, checking names against a list as if this were a routine transfer, not the aftermath of a shattered offensive. Richter's wrists ache from the cold, but his mind is sharp, sharper than it has been in weeks. At a temporary collection point near Spa, the prisoners are halted beside a field turned into a motor pool. Floodlights illuminate rows of vehicles, trucks, half-tracks, ambulances, tank transporters. Mechanics work under the lights, sleeves rolled up, tools clinking. Engine start, stop, start again. Damaged vehicles are towed in, repaired, and sent back out with barely a pause. Richter watches a fuel truck reverse into place. A hose is connected. The transfer takes minutes. No arguments, no calculations, no fear of shortage. An American sergeant notices Richter staring and follows his gaze. Hell of a mess out there, he says conversationally, as if discussing the weather. Richter nods. You lost much fuel, he replies. The sergeant shrugs. We'll get more by morning. By morning. That phrase lands harder than any artillery round. They are loaded onto trucks and driven further east, deeper into Allied-held territory. The road signs change. Liège, Verviers, Aachen. Each name once represented distance, danger, effort. Now they pass as milestones on a conveyor belt. At a larger POW camp near Aachen, Richter is searched, tagged, and assigned a number. His rank is noted. His unit. The clerk barely looks up as he writes. There are hundreds of prisoners already. Thousands, perhaps. German infantry, Volksgrenadiers, Panzer crewmen, all variations of the same expression. Bewilderment, exhaustion, disbelief. That night, Richter lies on a wooden bunk inside a tent warmed by a small stove. Outside, trucks come and go. Always trucks. Sleep does not come easily. He thinks back, not just days, but years. Poland, France, Russia. Victories achieved on tight schedules, fragile supply lines, and a belief that speed could replace sustainability. Blitzkrieg. Shock. Momentum. It worked until it didn't. In the east, the distances were too vast. In the air, the enemy learned faster than Germany could replace pilots. At sea, blockades strangled what little flexibility remained. And now, in the west, the final illusion has collapsed. Germany can still fight, but it can no longer sustain fighting. The next morning, Richter is assigned work duty, clearing debris from a road damaged by shelling. Under guard, he and other prisoners stack broken crates and twisted metal. Many of the crates bear American markings. One splits open as they move it. Inside, spare parts, brand new, still wrapped. Richter pauses, turning one over in his hands. Manufactured recently, shipped across an ocean, delivered to a forward area in winter. A German private beside him mutters, "They treat supplies like ammunition." Richter shakes his head. "No," he says quietly, "they treat supplies like certainty." That afternoon, American armor passes through the area, fresh units rotating forward, clean tanks, full fuel tanks. Crews who have slept, eaten hot food, and no replacements are behind them. Richter realizes something else then, something colder than defeat. The Ardennes offensive did not fail because the Germans lacked courage or even skill. It failed because it assumed the enemy would collapse under pressure. But pressure only works when the opponent is brittle. The Americans are not brittle. They are elastic. Push them back, and they stretch. Stop pushing, and they snap forward again, stronger, heavier, fed by an industrial machine that does not pause for winter, weather, or loss. That evening, as the sun sets behind a haze of smoke and cloud, Richter watches a fuel convoy roll west, tank after tank after tank, disappearing toward the front. He imagines the same scene from the German side. One truck, two if lucky. Three, if nothing breaks and the road is clear and the fuel hasn't already been promised to someone else. The comparison is no longer theoretical. It is visible, audible, relentless. A week later, news filters through the camp. The offensive has stalled everywhere. Units are retreating or surrendering. The Meuse was never reached. The fuel never came. Richter is not surprised. The war will continue, he knows. Months perhaps. Cities will burn. Men will die. Orders will still be given. But the outcome is no longer in doubt, because wars are not won by who captures fuel depots. They are won by who can afford to lose them and replace them without hesitation. Richter closes his eyes as engines rumble through the night. For the first time since he climbed into a tank years ago, he allows himself to think the unthinkable. Germany has already lost. Winter gives way slowly to mud. By March of 1945, the snow around the camp has receded into gray slush, revealing trampled ground and the scars of constant movement. Richter marks the days by routine now. Roll call, work details, meals that are thin but regular. Regular. That word still carries weight. Through the wire, the war moves closer to its end. American units rotate through the rear areas, some fresh, some battered, all still supplied. New vehicles appear with unfamiliar markings. Variants improved from lessons learned only weeks earlier. Equipment evolves in real time. One afternoon, Richter is assigned to unload crates from a rail car. The train has come from the west, he overhears. From a port. He watches as boxcars slide open to reveal stacks of fuel additives, lubricants, spare engines, entire systems designed to keep other systems alive. A German officer beside him whispers, "They are already preparing for the next war." Richter doesn't answer. By April, artillery thunder rolls eastward day and night. The front has crossed the Rhine. The sound is no longer distant. It is constant, like a storm that never breaks. Each day brings new prisoners into the camp, their stories overlapping in grim repetition. No fuel, no air cover, orders that arrive too late, or not at all. One evening, an American officer addresses the prisoners through an interpreter. Germany has surrendered in the West. The war is effectively over. There is no cheering, no protest, only a long collective exhale. Richter sits on his bunk that night and thinks back to Bullingen, to the shock of abundance, to the moment the war's true balance revealed itself not in gunfire but in logistics. He realizes that was the instant he stopped believing in victory, even as he continued fighting. Months later, after release and a long walk home through a ruined country, Richter stands on a hill overlooking a shattered rail yard. Burned locomotives rust in place. Empty sidings stretch into weeds. Germany's arteries are dry. Years pass. The world rebuilds. Lines are drawn. New uniforms replace old ones. Factories hum again, but under different flags, different doctrines. Sometimes Richter dreams of the Ardennes, of snow and engines and the smell of fuel. In the dream, he opens an American truck and sees not gasoline, but time, endless, renewable, impossible to steal. He wakes each time with the same understanding. The war was not lost in Berlin or Normandy or Stalingrad alone. It was lost the moment Germany bet everything on speed and faced an enemy who could afford to wait, replace, and advance forever.